Hi everyone, I'm just another online reviewer, and welcome back to another installment of A Different Vision. This is where I take an existing piece of media and reimagine it, showing you how I would do things differently. And today, we're continuing with my version of the Multiverse Saga, with Phase 5. Again, it's no secret that the MCU has gone downhill these past few years. Phase 4 left a lot of fans and casual audiences split, and Phase 5 didn't really do much to sway people's opinions. Let's see if we can make any improvements, but before we begin, let's give a quick recap. No Disney Plus shows, What If being the only exception. No new franchises. With the MCU softly rebooting after Secret Wars, it feels like a waste to introduce new characters so soon. The special presentations will be kept in, since they're small one-offs. Lastly, I'm using the same time frame as the original, which is from 2021 to 2027. From 2021 to 2022, Phase 4 consisted of 6 movies, 2 seasons of What If, and 1 special presentation. Okay, with that out of the way, this is my revision of the Multiverse Saga Part 2. Moving on to Phase 5, we'll begin with the first movie. It was originally going to be a Disney Plus show, before it was announced that it would be reworked into a movie. Whatever the case may be, I think Don Cheadle's War Machine is long overdue for his own movie, or at least one where he's the main lead. The movie itself will be a loose adaptation of the comic storyline of the same name, with elements from Shang-Chi and Ironheart. As bad as that show is, I will admit there were a few ideas I think could be better utilized in a different project. Rhodey makes it his responsibility to protect Tony's technology, and blames himself when it ends up in the wrong hands, especially since he was technically the first person to steal one of his suits back in Iron Man 2. Falcon and the Winter Soldier will also come in to help. Sam can relate to Rhodey's situation, since he too knows what it's like trying to look after someone's legacy. Bucky, on the other hand, never got the chance to make things right with Tony before his death, and sees this as a form of redemption. A few members from the Young Avengers will also join Rhodey's team. Since his armor is modeled after Tony's, Iron Lad feels like it's also his duty to honor the Iron Man legacy. Cassie also knows the importance of protecting a loved one's work, since that's what her father did with the Pym's shrink tech. Patriot would also join in because Sam and Bucky are involved. And Kate just wants to help all her friends and mentors. Other characters like Pepper, Morgan, Happy Hogan, and Harley Keener could also appear in supporting or cameo roles. Justin Hammer could also have a small role, reluctantly helping Rhodey in exchange for reduced time on his sentence. Maybe Ezekiel Stane could be a minor antagonist, wanting to avenge his father's death and showing off his bionic enhancements, like in the comics. However, there's 2 characters I think could be perfect as the main villains. The first is the real Mandarin, making his official debut and paying off the tease from the short film All Hail the King. Side note, I'd also have Trevor Slattery return for a cameo. The second main villain is revealed to be none other than Ultron. Not only is he still alive, but he's also been secretly infiltrating and sabotaging Stark Industries, the Avengers, and everything in Tony's life for the past decade. Naturally, the movie ends with the 10 Rings being disbanded, and Ultron seemingly destroyed. However, the most important part is Rhodey, Sam, and Bucky deciding to assemble a new team of Avengers. The mid-credits scene would show Iron Lad and Stature confronting Kate and Patriot. Throughout the movie, both acted suspiciously out of character a few times, doing and saying things that contradict from what we saw of them in Phase 4. This leads to a small 2v2 fight, which ends with Iron Lad and Stature subdued and knocked unconscious. It's revealed that Kate and Patriot have already been replaced by Skrulls. The after-credits scene shows 2 characters talking about their plans for the new president of the United States. One of them is a giant-looking monster, while the other is a man of average height with a big head and glowing green eyes. This leads us into the second movie, of Phase 5. If there's any Marvel character that deserved another movie, it's the Hulk, especially with how much he's been disrespected and sidelined recently. The movie will be a loose adaptation of the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes 2-part episode, Gamma World. with elements from Brave New World, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and ideas from any of the previously scrapped Hulk sequels. Bruce Banner in this movie is emotionally all over the place. Most of his friends are either retired or dead, the man who hunted him down for years is now president, and he reunites with the love of his life, who he hasn't seen in years. We'll also get to see other Hulk personalities appear, like Joe Fixit, Doc Green, and the return of Savage Hulk. Jennifer Walters also makes her debut, turning into She-Hulk after Bruce gives her a blood transfusion to save her life, and she chooses to help her cousin. Doc Samson from the previous movie would also return, not only gaining gamma powers, but also choosing to help Bruce and Jennifer. Hulkling would also join the team, mostly trying to keep up the ruse and stopping any potential threats to the Skrulls' plans at first, but would eventually question his allegiances as the movie goes on. Sam, Bucky, and Rhodey would also make an appearance, not just to help, but also finding potential candidates for their new team of Avengers. As for the villains, there's three main ones. The first being Samuel Stearns, aka the Leader. Like in Brave New World, Stearns agreed to use his genius to help Ross in exchange for his freedom, which resulted in creating a new generation of super soldiers enhanced with gamma radiation. However, Stearns knew Ross would eventually go back on his promise, and plotted his revenge by teaming up with the other gamma-enhanced individuals. This is also how more of Hulk's rogues gallery will be included, like Zax, Bybeast, and the Gamma Corps. The second main villain is Abomination. Not only does he want payback against the Hulk, but he also serves as the leader's second in command. The third main villain would be President Ross, who transforms into the Red Hulk thanks to the leader's manipulation by the climax. This would also be William Hurt's final performance as the character, due to his passing in early 2022, and the movie would release a year later after wrapping up production. I would also add a surprise fourth villain, who's revealed to be none other than the Red She-Hulk, aka Betty Ross. The leader faked her death at the beginning to secretly experiment on her, and would later bring her in to fight the heroes. Thankfully, she's eventually brought back to her senses and joins Team Hulk. The movie ends with the leader, Abomination, and Ross being sent to the raft. Hulk declines the invitation to join Sam, Bucky, and Rhodey. Instead, he chooses to find a cure for all those infected by gamma radiation, with help from Doc Samson and Betty. However, with Bruce's blessing, She-Hulk takes the offer to be part of the new Avengers team. The mid-credits scene would show She-Hulk, Sam, Bucky, and Rhodey visiting the leader in his cell at the raft, where he cryptically warns them of a potential multiversal threat, like he did in Brave New World. The after-credits scene shows Hulkling, Miss America, Wiccan, and Speed being taken somewhere by Kid Loki to meet someone important, who's revealed to be Thor. That brings us to the third movie of this phase. The movie will adapt the Eternals saga storyline from the comics, with elements from Love and Thunder, the Eternals, the Marvels, and even WandaVision. MCU Thor is a character that's endured so much physical and emotional trauma, near-death experiences, his homeworld destroyed, and losing several loved ones. This is only doubled down when Jane Foster returns for a cameo at the beginning and is revealed to be diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, the two do reconcile before she passes away. Speaking of which, Captain Marvel would be a part of this movie. She returns to Earth after finding out Maria Rambeau is also diagnosed with cancer, and sees her one last time before she dies. If losing her best friend wasn't enough, she also starts to suffer from PTSD after fighting Thanos, and questions her role as a hero. Thor manages to guide her back on the right path by showing her that improvement comes from accepting humility. She also reveals more about her past in space, like how she fell in love and had a child with a male Skrull, but tragically lost them both in an accident. Keep that in mind, because it will be important later. The other important characters are the Eternals themselves. They've lived on Earth for so long and have seen the worst of humanity, not knowing if it's even worth saving anymore. Thor manages to change their minds by showing them what the best of humanity has to offer. The most notable examples being Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, two men with little to no power, but still fought with all their might to save everyone. Thanks to this change of heart, the Eternals turn on their creators and stop the birth of a new Celestial from destroying Earth. The remaining young Avengers would also be there to help. Thor would have a touching reunion with Kid Loki. Even if both are alternate versions of each other's brother, they'd still accept each other as family. The Guardians are pretty much the same here as they were in Love and Thunder, only showing up in the first 20 minutes. As for the other characters like Valkyrie, Lady Sif, Korg, and Meek, they would still have supporting roles within the story, although maybe Korg and Meek could end up dying to help raise the stakes. In the end, the heroes prevent the birth of Tiamat, but Celestial Island is still formed, which will also be important later. The Eternals leave Earth to save more worlds from the Celestials. Thor also plans to continue going off-world, and even gets Kid Loki, Valkyrie, and Lady Sif to go with him, leaving Tur from the Dark World in charge of New Asgard in their absence. With Thor's blessing, Captain Marvel stays on Earth as its cosmic protector, and even joins the new Avengers team being formed. The mid-credits scene shows Hulkling subduing Wiccan, Speed, and Miss America, now having replaced every one of his teammates still on Earth with Skrulls. The after-credits scene shows Adam Warlock coming out of his birth pod, and looking ready to fight the Guardians. But before we get to that, let's liven things up a bit with the second special presentation of this saga. Like with Werewolf by Night, this is another project I wouldn't change a thing. The Guardians franchise has always kind of been separate from the rest of the MCU, just off doing its own thing, and I like that. And I can't think of a better follow-up than with the third and final installment for our favorite team of cosmic heroes. Again, another project I wouldn't change since it's very much its own thing. The Guardians have one last adventure before going their separate ways. The mid-credits scene is the same as the original, showing Rocket and Groot with their new team of Guardians. The after-credits scene is also kept the same, showing Star-Lord back on Earth with his grandfather and teasing his possible return in the future. That is the one thing that left me confused after watching the movie. Out of all the Guardians, why was he the only one guaranteed to come back? Not just that, but where would he even show up? Well, fear not, dear viewers, because that's one of the many questions finally answered in the penultimate movie of this phase. If it wasn't already obvious, the movie will loosely adapt Secret Invasion, with elements from the disastrous miniseries of the same name, Thunderbolts, WandaVision, and even the yet-to-be-released Vision Quest. The new team of Avengers consists of 7 primary members: the Falcon, the Winter Soldier, War Machine, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and 2 surprise additions to the team. The first is Star-Lord, serving as the team's wild card and paying off that after-credits scene tease from Guardians 3. The final member is revealed to be none other than the White Vision, brought back to life by the Skrulls as their super weapon, but thankfully, his memories are restored, thanks to Wiccan using his magical powers. The Young Avengers also return, and join the team after being rescued from their imprisonment in the Saber space station. Remember that after-credits scene from Spider-Man Far From Home that not only revealed the space station, but that Nick Fury and Mariah Hill in that movie were Talos and Sorin in disguise? Well, the faction of Skrulls planning to invade Earth were inspired by Mysterio's actions, and part of their plan involved gaining the people's trust by pretending to be familiar heroes from alternate dimensions. This is the main reason I cut John Krasinski's cameo from Multiverse of Madness. Instead, he would show up in this movie as a Skrull impersonating Captain America from another universe. Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise would also be included as Skrulls impersonating Black Widow and Iron Man. For those that don't know, all 3 of these actors originally auditioned for these roles, but dropped out due to creative differences or scheduling conflicts, and we ended up with the castings we know today. I think this would not only be a fun bit of fan service, but it would also give these actors the opportunity to play these characters in some way at least once. As for the main villains, there's 2. The first is Ultron, who's not only still alive after the events of Armor Wars, but it's also revealed that he's been helping the Skrulls for years by giving them access to all sorts of valuable information. In return, they agreed to help him finish what he started back in Age of Ultron, which is to transfer his consciousness into Vision's body, hence the inclusion of the White Vision. The other major villain is the Super Skrull Kl'rt. Not only is he the leader of the radicalized faction of Skrulls, but it's also revealed that he's the Skrull Captain Marvel had a relationship with during her time in space. He never truly loved Carol, and only used her to conceive a powerful offspring before faking both of their deaths to avoid suspicion. Speaking of which, their child is none other than Hulkling. In the comics, he is the son of the original Captain Marvel, Mar-Vell, and the Skrull Princess, Enel. For the MCU, I think a change like this works to adapt this version of the story. It goes without saying that Hulkling eventually has a change of heart and turns against his father. That's the advantage of having characters like Star-Lord and the White Vision on the team, since they both have experience dealing with monstrous creators and help convince Hulkling to rejoin their team. The movie ends with the Skrulls being defeated, Ultron finally being destroyed for good this time, and both heroes young and old coming together as a new team of Avengers. The mid-credits scene cuts back to the Void, where a metallic figure wearing a green cloak and hood is seen walking around the dead bodies of some kind of compound. After finding a sling ring among the corpses, the figure turns around and reveals himself to be Doctor Doom, before it cuts to black. The after-credits scene is a reworked version of the one from Thunderbolts. The team of heroes are in Avengers Tower, when one of the monitors spots something flying in the sky. It's revealed to be a Blackbird jet with a big X symbol, before it cuts to black. That brings us to the final project of this phase. This is another project where I'd make little changes, since I feel the original is fine the way it is. For example, one minor change is during the moment with the Wolverine variant wearing the John Byrne-inspired suit. Instead of Mark Ruffalo, I would change it to Eric Bana's version as the Grey Hulk. Not only does it make it more accurate to the comic cover it's referencing, but it's also a subtle Easter egg to one of the scrapped sequel ideas to the Ang Lee movie. Plus, it just makes more sense to have a version of the Hulk that appeared around the same time as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. However, there's two major changes I would make to this movie. The first one is scrapping Chris Evans' cameo as the Human Torch. As funny as it was, my plans for the rest of this saga won't work if it's kept in. To replace it, I would have Deadpool make fun of the climax from X-Men Origins Wolverine, like what Michael Galusic did almost 2 decades ago.
Wait! This is all wrong! You two should be fighting me! Ooh! And I could have laser beams coming out of my eyes and rocket blades coming out of my arms? Oh wait, no, these are all awful ideas.
Side note, I'd also have him cameo as one of the members of the Deadpool Corps. The other major change is explaining how anchor beings are related to incursions. In the comics, incursions are catastrophic events where 2 separate realities collide. I think this could help explain all the inconsistencies and continuity errors within the Fox X-Men movies. Various similar realities existed side by side, but the incursions caused them to destroy and combine with each other. However, anchor beings are individuals who aren't affected, and stay the same regardless of what happens. This explains why Jackman's Wolverine is the only one to stay the same in every reality. Unfortunately, when even just one variant of an anchor being ends up dying, it causes a ripple effect on the status quo, and eventually leads to a massive multiversal incursion. It also explains the existence of the Cavalrine, since recasting Wolverine is no longer sacred ground. The mid-credits scene is the same as the original, which is a small tribute video to all the Marvel movies made in the past under Fox. The after-credits scene has Colossus take Deadpool, Wolverine, X-23, and even Channing Tatum's Gambit to the X-Mansion. He introduces them to the Scarlet Witch, calling back to the post-credits scene from Multiverse of Madness. Deadpool looks to the camera and says, "And you thought we forgot," before it cuts to black, and the final line of text appears. Deadpool and the X-Men will return. Let's look at the timeline. From 2023 to 2024, Phase 5 consisted of 6 new movies, 1 special presentation, and 2 new seasons of What If. This follows the same pattern as Phase 4, very similar to Phase 2, doing the same with Phase 1.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
And that's my revision for the exciting middle part of the MCU Multiverse Saga. Whatever your thoughts, leave them in the comments below. Next time is the epic conclusion, so stay tuned. Like and subscribe for more. See ya!